Alright, welcome back to Nick Lenz's Doctor Who Review, episode 117. You're probably thinking, Nick, what's with the stacked DVDs on your little desk there? Well, there's a reason why they're here. Because we are now reviewing, for this one, the final story released. Well, excuse me. Final story left to review for season 21 of the show, and also the final televised story of Peter Davidson as the Doctor, along with Tegan and Turlough. This being the third story of season 21, Frontios. A very interesting four-parter. I gotta say, it's Step Up Awakening, released from broadcast from January 26th to February 3rd of 1984. Yeah, only 4 parts here. So the thing starts out basically where the now this is like sometime after the events of the Awakening, and by the way, the ending of this leads into Resurrection Daleks, which is by the way the very next story, and I'll get to the reason for that. So basically they come out whatever they were doing, and then like, oh, we see this planet called Frontios, and apparently this thing is like, okay, don't tell the Time Lords I was here, because apparently this planet is outside their jurisdiction for some reason. Yeah, they're mentioned a lot in this episode, the Time Lords. I mentioned a little bit of Resurrection Daleks, but in the case of the following 2 stories, in the case of Planet of Fire and Arizali, well, in the case of, I think it's mentioned once. Planet of Fire, I don't think Time was mentioned at all. Time Dilemma, yes. The Twin Dilemma, yes, definitely. So, they kind of indirectly crash the planet, and of course, also there's a bombardment of meteorites. By the way, our creatures for the story do not make their debut until like partway into episode 2 of the story. That's a quite interesting mystery, and of course, the Doctor is kind of accused of something like this, that he's an invader. We see the leader. Apparently he's the son of the previous leader, and it's sort of a socialist type of group where it's like one person, and like I say, it's democracy, despite the fact that who the heck vote for this person? Like, oh, he's the son of the captain. Okay. So basically he's in charge because of nepotism. Of course he is. And you're not going to get some electricity because you got barely anything. Of course, this guy called Mr. Rennigan. Oh, by the way, the chief scientist, the guy who plays him in this story, this was not the original selected actor to play him. Because his original actor, get this, like, he'd been casted, he had awards and filling, and then the man was found murdered in his apartment. He was basically beaten to death. And apparently the guy who killed him committed suicide. And the reason why he was killed, because he was gay. Yep, that was simply the reason why he was killed. All because he was gay. Yeah. You're like, what? Yeah. I have never heard of this before, where an actor who originally cast to play a character in Doctor Who, and then has to replace because the actor gets killed prior to the start of the story. Yeah, and they also had some slight rewrites here and there, and a lot of the stuff for the story was basically Eric Stewart, obviously, who was a primary writer on the show at this point in time, and also John Nathan Turner wanted a monster-centric story, which he got that. So, of course, basically, there's all of these mysterious deaths to happen throughout the story, off-screen, mind you. They have it where before they have the Doctor Eyes planned that this researcher is being sealed, but they do in fact reopen it. Basically, in part 3 of the story, they basically reopen it after what happened with Tegan and Turlough. So basically, they meet the leader, of course, who's a bit skeptical, is quite young, and they think, oh, he's the invader, so they're not, and he has some. Please don't tell Time Lords about this. Yeah, he says a lot to this. Like, don't mention it any place that he was here. Like, he was just passing by, got here by accident, and they go trash on the TARDIS, but the thing is destroyed. You're like, what? Yeah, the thing is destroyed. Which is actually the first time it's been destroyed like this in the show, and it's basically gone until like the last part of the story. Well, how it blows up is a mystery, and there's also this thing with the story where the hat rack, yes, the famous hat rack that had been in the show since the very start of the series. Yeah. The doc takes her to the console room. Yeah, I think this will also be the last time the hat rack is officially seen in this series, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, my guess is probably the reason why that they got rid of it. Probably because basically it was no longer necessary. But apparently it was brought back in the novels. But it didn't exactly... Like, it actually came back in the story The Big Bang, which was actually a 11th Doctor story. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but this hat rack had pretty much been there in the council room. Yeah, and apparently the hat stand remained, and they kind of used it as a weapon to threaten each other, which was kind of funny. Yeah, Turtle using the hat stand as a weapon was so funny. So they of course him, Tegan, and the daughter of the chief scientist break into the research room via the ventilation shaft to get this device to activate this generator, which gets some light into place. And then for some random reason, the leader gets a heart attack, and it's not really delved into why he's got a heart issue. Also, he's got a mark on his chest. Was he previously shot? Oh, this by far is never explained. It just happens, and then for some weird reason, he's absorbed into the ground. They say the earth eats him. That doesn't look like someone pulled him underground. I saw this, I'm like, oh my gosh, basically, the only time I've seen something like this was actually using Masked Man. Yeah. Except this came out in 1984, and Masked Man came out in 1987. So, then it's discovered, after eventually they reopened the research lab, that Charles discovers, oh, we know where the quarry is. The quarry was actually underneath the research lab. They also mentioned at some point that the colony ship was out of bounds. Reason? Not really explained. It's like, there's some stuff with the story, it's like, okay, why in the world is stuff like this? And of course, basically, Turlo and the guy's daughter goes underground and meets up with our villains. The Trinoids, these bug aliens. Who, by the way, do return in like a couple other stories after this. And apparently they make like a tunnel, like a ring around the whole planet. Like it's a big engine so they can move the planet. And I heard that, I'm like, wait a minute. Did these aliens rip off the Daleks because they did the same thing during the first Doctor story? I think that just by sheer coincidence, the fact that it's like that. Also, before I continue here, it was in this very story that the BBC announced that Colin Baker would succeed Peter Davison as the Doctor, which would not happen until 3 stories after this one would not happen. Yep, 3 more stories. Yeah. You're like, really? They announced it during this story? Yeah, because the cast was leaving the show. And throughout the next 3 stories, like, one by one they're leaving. First is Tegan, then Turlough, and then the Doctor himself. Yep. So, apparently these creatures also got this sort of telepathy thing where they call people in place. And putting the little lantern thing they had can actually hurt them. So you go underground, and they have to go back underground when, of course, basically the Doctor cell down there with Tegan. Which, of course, like, oh, the people know about him because, oh, you're a Time Lord. We know about your reputation. You're like, what? How the heck basically does he know about the Time Lords? He lives underground. I guess a story may have reached his ears about it. It's kind of weird. You're like, okay. And then we find this machine that makes tunnels, which is piloted by the current leader's dead father. Yeah, because it's revealed that he did die, but then part of his body was taken underground, and then, like, they buried him with a head. Which, like, really? Well, they have something about the state funeral. There's also a bit of looting going on here. We're led by an orderly who steals a bunch of food. Yeah, the rations anyways. Also, it's mentioned that the reason why this colonist ship is here is because completely out of the blue, their failsafe system just randomly failed by sheer randomness. Though it's in part 4 that was actually done by the Trinoids. Yeah, they're the ones responsible for it. And they did, oh, why would they let them for the first 10 years they were there? Simple. Took use of the environment. That was simply the reason for it. Now some people have been deserting and live out the wastelands for this place. Like, that's interesting. Yes. And eventually, of course, the dead man basically is put to rest. And then, of course, the second command, he basically, the guy is sort of the chief enforcer. He gets roped in to be put in this machine that he apparently is killed. And, of course, they do find the TARDIS in pieces beneath the surface. And also before this, before the TARDIS exploded, for some reason, and it's not really explained here, but the door to the interior of the TARDIS was stuck. Like, it wasn't locked. It was just sealed or warped. It wasn't really clear exactly the reason for this. It just randomly happened. You think, oh, was the Trinity responsible for it? Not really. It is one of the most weirdest things I've ever seen. It's like, you watch the story, you're like, wait, are we going to follow up what the heck was the reason for that? No, not really. Eventually, of course, the leader is defeated after the TARDIS reassembles itself. And then, of course, the guy is dropped off on this other planet, which, of course, they explore this in a novel. Yes, there's a novel that explores this. And everybody's turned back normal, and they're given the hat rack as a souvenir. And then the crew go back in TARDIS, and then they get pulled through the universe, which leads into Resurrection Daleks, which they get out of no problem. Apparently, got caught in a time corridor. Yes. So it's interesting to note that this story, despite having some obvious questions with it, does lead into Resurrection Daleks. Overall, I found this story much more enjoyable to watch than Awakening. I'll give the one roughly a 9 out of 10. Now, on to final thoughts of, well, first, the Peter Davison era. Really interesting, the fact that basically we kind of all started here with Legopolis. This is where he regenerates. And that was part 2 of a master story. That leads into Castrovalva. A really good story, mind you, yes. And then leads into For the Doomsday, the second ever story, which was kind of weak. I wasn't necessarily a big fan of it, per se. And by the way, this is season 19 of the show at this point, though Legopolis actually in season 18. We also had The Visitation. I got that as a Christmas present. I do have majority of the Peter Davison era here, except I don't have Conda or Snake Dance. Yeah, I do not have these two stories at all. The reason for it, I don't have a specific reason why. I just never bought them per se. Yes, so oh, I forgot one. Yep. So we have Earthshock in this Cybermen DVD, and this actually is just before another Peter Davison story, Time Flight. And then it was Arc Infinity, the start of Season 20. Then after Arc Infinity, it was Snake Dance, which was a follow-up to Conda, which came between Florida Doomsday and Visitations of between. These two stories where you had Conda. Yeah, I never bought Conda purely because basically here's the thing with the two between this one and Snake Dance. I found Snake Dance a lot more interesting than Conda. Yep. And then of course you had the Black Guardian trilogy. The King's Demons, which of course I actually tweeted Janet Fielding about this story. She was not a fan of filming this thing. She was, like, basically, if you watch the story, Kate complains of frequently in the story that she's cold. It turns out, basically, the reason for it because it actually really was cold. And she hated the chameleon robot. That was something Jonathan Fitzgerald came up with. And by the way, at this point, we're season 20. Let's see, the King's Demons. Let's see, after Snake Dance. Basically, I should point out though, these three stories in particular are all I have, along with this for season 20 of this show. Yeah, these 4 DVDs, but this one here has 3 stories. So I have most of season 20 here except for Snake Dance. Yeah, I don't own Snake Dance. Then comes basically the season I'm basically about to do my final thoughts on. Starting off with this, I actually like this story. I get the fact some people don't like this story per se, but I really it was very exciting to watch. And then we have Awakening, which I'll get my ranking in just a minute. And then we have Frontios, Resurrection Daleks, Planet of Fire, The Caves of Aranzali, Peter Davis's last story, and of course we have The Twin Dilemma. This, I threw this in here because this technically was the finale for season 21 of the show. So, this season was very interesting to say the least. I would say the only story I wasn't really necessarily a big fan of was Awakening. But otherwise, this is a pretty solid season of basically classic Doctor Who, in my opinion anyways. So, what do I rank these stories? Now, you're probably thinking, is this all of season 21 here? Well, here's the answer for that. Yes. This DVD set here is the entire 21st season of the show. Yep. So, if I want to get my rankings for these ones. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you have 7 stories for season 21. So, at number 7, we have The Awakening. Yeah, it was interesting to watch, but not a fan of the story itself. That was number 7. Number 6. Everyone thinking, okay, what makes number 6? Well, I would say it is Twin Dilemma, Colin Baker's very first story, and it's also the finale of the season. I consider that number 6. Okay. Number 5, I give it the Warriors of the Deep. No. Change of mind. Frontios made number 5. You're thinking, wait, you just reviewed that. Yeah, number 5. I get this number 4. And then comes the top 3. Which one of these 3 made 3, 2, and 1? So at number 3, we have Planet of Fire. Yep, that made number 3. Number 2, I give it to Resurrection Daleks, my very first regular classic Doctor Who story watch. You're thinking, why the heck would you rate this as number 2? Well, because no, it's not just because basically it's a because it's the first one. Because this story in particular is very popular with Doctor Who fans. I agree with the acclaim the story got, because it was so good. The Caves at Rosali, Peter Davidson's final story, is my number 1. Yep, that's my ranking. So, one more time. Rankings are, at number 7 is The Awakening. Number 6, Twin Dilemma. Number 5, Frontios. Number 4, Warriors of Deep. Number 3, Planet of Fire. Number 2, Resurrection Daleks. And number 1, Caves at Rosali. That is my ranking for this thing. I will continue doing this, basically, for a lot of the seasons, per se. Yeah. But that is pretty much, basically, the whole season in a nutshell. The final thoughts on the Peter Davison era for the show. It's a quite interesting era, per se. There's a lot of really good stories in this era. I mean, like, if you want to rank basically what is by far the weakest stories of this whole era, like, of season 19, I think basically I gave it to Forward to Doomsday as the weakest one. Yeah. So, of the weakest stories, Forward to Doomsday from season 19, from season 20, I'm going to give The King's Demons. And, of course, this season was Awakening. Those 3 are the weakest stories. So out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Out of like 20 stories, yeah, those 3 are considered the weakest. My personal favorites, Resurrection Daleks, Planet Fire, Caves of Rosali. Like, a lot of, I would say, of the 3 seasons, yeah, it generally is one weak one, per se. If you want to get my rankings for seasons 1920, watch videos basically cover those. But now, the thing is, for 19, I don't own Conda or St. James 1. I don't own Snake Dance. I just had no desired item. That was simply the reason why I don't have them. But these DVDs here I just showed off here is the entire Peter Davison era. Like, all the ones I own. Which is basically 18 stories. And this also is the first classic Doctor Who Doctor era that is completely finished. Yes, I am fully done with this one. This also is the 4th Doctor I pretty much fully reviewed. Of course, I've also reviewed 9, 10, and 13. But that was part of New Who, but I'm counting anyways. But, what are your thoughts, basically, on the classic for the Peter Davison era for Doctor Who? Feel free to leave in the comments below, basically, your rankings of how you rank these 3 seasons, stories, seasons 19, 20, and 21. And also, I should point out, though, this is actually another season that officially got done for classic Doctor Who. Yes. Yes, indeed. The only seasons officially I've finished have been I finished season 15, 16, 17. These 3 seasons, along with 19 and 21. Yeah, so out of the 26 seasons overall, I have fully reviewed now 6 out of 26. I have officially 20 seasons left to review. Now, tomorrow I'm going to start watching Return of Ultraman. I will come back to the show after I go on break for both, basically, Return of Ultraman and the Kamen Rider season I'm going to do, okay? So, that's pretty much it for the video. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe to notifications. See you all tomorrow. Bye.